Calling the emergency medical services. Okay, so it's really important to call the emergency medical services as quickly as possible in an emergency. The numbers to call here in the UK is 999, or we can use 112, which is a European number. And if you're watching this video from another country, make sure you know what number you need to call in an emergency situation, because every country tends to have their own number. Most of us are familiar with 911 being in America, but I believe 911 also works in other countries as well. Now, when we call them, we give them clear information about the situation. We describe the accident, we describe the injuries, and we, most importantly, describe the condition of that patient. If it's a life-threatening situation, they will categorize your call accordingly and send the relevant services that are needed. So make sure you give them as much information about that casualty as you can. What is wrong with them? Make sure you speak clearly and slowly to them, which I know is easier said than done when you are panicking. So try to stay calm. Make sure you also tell them where you are. They're not going to be able to come to you if you don't tell them where you are. House names or blocks of flats, they are very difficult to find. So try and give them clear instructions. If you're not quite sure where you are, look for landmarks such as road signs, buildings, schools, churches. If you're in a house, look at posts, letters that come through the door to find out what the full address is. But in rural areas such as beaches and forests and country roads, it's very hard sometimes to describe where you are. However, there is an app out there called What 3 Words that works all over the world. You do need to download it and you do need to have a smartphone to be able to do this. But What 3 Words is great because what it does, it gives the user 3 unique words based on the 3 square meter location of where they are. And if you don't actually have GPS signal at that time, it will work off your last GPS signal. So that means the emergency services know exactly where you are and they'll be able to get to you without a delay. Now, when you do call the emergency medical services, consider using the speakerphone so that you're actually hands-free, which means you'll be able to listen to the commands of the emergency medical services as well as treating and helping that patient. Okay, so while you're waiting for the emergency medical services to arrive, I want you to try and ask the casualty, the patient, lots of questions. You want to find out lots of information about them, such as their date of birth if you don't already know it. Are they on any medication? Do they have any allergies? Are they undergoing any hospital treatment at the moment? Try and find out who their next of kin is. You might have this information already because maybe they're your friend or your colleague, or maybe HR has this information. But you still want to try and get as much information out of the casualty as you can because this is useful for the emergency medical services when they arrive. So things like allergies, medication, what are you on? Have you taken any medication? Have you got it with you? Have you been in hospital recently? Are you undergoing hospital treatment? All this is really important, as well as finding out next of kin information or asking them, is there anyone you'd like me to call for you? Now, in your workplace, there might be lots of people watching, trying to help, but not quite sure what to do. I want you to just make a list or in your head or on paper and think about things you can ask your helpers, the bystanders, to do for you in your workplace. So what are you going to ask the helpers and the bystanders to do? Because I know in my workplace, where I used to be a teacher in a secondary school, the very first thing I'm going to do is tell my helpers and bystanders to go and let the receptionist know we've called the ambulance. Because the receptionist is going to let the ambulance come in through the main gate. So it all depends on the type of workplace you're in. You might be in an office, you might actually be in a home-based workplace. There might be a big car park and multiple entrances into the building. So make sure that the helpers are able to guide the emergency medical services to you as quickly as possible without a delay. You don't want them having to buzz on a buzzer for ages trying to get access to you. If your workplace is full of equipment, then your helpers can clear a path so the emergency medical services can get to you and a casualty quickly. For example, they're probably going to use a bed or a chair to transport the casualty if they're unable to walk. So you need to make sure there's enough space for them to be able to do that. Now, if the emergency medical services haven't stayed on the phone with you, then make sure you do keep a mobile handy at all times, just in case they need to call you at any point. so your bystanders can make sure they're monitoring that phone for you. If your workplace is in a home situation, then make sure that all the pets, if there are any pets, have been locked away safely. If it's night time, maybe turn on all the lights in the house or the home, the property they're in, just so it's easier for the emergency medical services to find you. If you're lucky enough to have a car outside, maybe put the hazards on the car so the emergency medical service can find where you are. Or ask one of the helpers to go and stand outside waving to make sure the ambulance can get to you quickly. You don't want there to be a delay. Your helpers could also go and get together all the medication the casualty might say they're on. It might be in their car, it might be in their bag, it might be by their desk. It could be anywhere in that workplace, so you could go and collect that person's belongings for them. You can make sure they've got everything they need to go to hospital, if that is what's going to be happening. So they can go and get all those bits and pieces together for them. Now, while you're with that patient, time can go very quickly or slowly, but please do not be afraid to call the emergency services again if the situation changes, or if the ambulance doesn't arrive. You can always call them again. If you're hard of hearing, you can notify the emergency medical services by text message. Now, I'm going to attach a leaflet in the resources section below so you can download that and have a look at it, because you actually need to be able to set it up beforehand. But it's really good way of contacting them if you can't hear or you've got a hearing impairment. Now, I've also attached another leaflet in the resources called Silent 55. Now, sometimes when you call the emergency services, you might not be able to talk. By making a noise, you might be putting yourself into a dangerous situation. So if you're in an emergency situation and you need help from the police or the ambulance, but you can't speak, try and make yourself heard and let the 999 operator know your call is actually a genuine call and you haven't done like a pocket dial. However, if making a sound would put you or somebody else in danger and you're unable to talk, what you can do, as soon as the phone has been answered, you can type 55 into your phone. And what that will do will be then let the police know that actually this is a genuine call, and your call will be transferred to what they call the silent solution system. And the police will be able to listen in and they'll be able to track where you're making that phone call from. Now, we've talked about calling the emergency medical services because it's an emergency, it's life-threatening. However, if it's not an emergency, but you're unsure what is wrong, you can also call 111. Now, this is a non-emergency number. And they will ask you questions, and again, they will categorise your call. They might send an ambulance if they deem it to be an emergency, or they might just give you advice like, can you go to this doctor's surgery, can you go to the chemist, or they'll get someone to call you back. So that's for a non-emergency. 111. And again, that number is based here in the UK. If you're watching this from another country, maybe see if you've got a non-emergency number you can call to get some medical advice.